Curtis Calhoun here with MMA News, and right now I am joined by Archie Colgan, who's getting ready to return at Bellator 288. How's it going, Archie?
I'm going. It's going great. How about yourself?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks again for the time. Really do appreciate it. It's been a heck of a whirlwind for you this year, right? You got the win in Eagle FC, come back
Yeah.
in Bellator at Bellator 283 and get that knockout. Just kind of sum up what these past few months have been like for you.
Man, it's been good. I wanted to get 4 fights this year in 22. I got off to a little bit of a late start in fighting in Eagle in March. Right, so that put me a couple of months behind. And then in that fight, I hurt my hand, had to get surgery on my hand, so that put me another couple of months back. But for what it's worth, like I'm gonna get three good fights in, three quality fights, two good promotions underneath. Like I got a lot of experience out of this year. I've grown a lot this year, so even though I didn't get the 4 fights, like I'm very happy with how this year is going. In 2 more weeks, I get to put a nice little cap off of. Unless I can get a fight in December, late December, that'd be awesome too. But saying that I probably won't, I get to cap it off in 2 weeks and get another dub, and we'll get those 4 fights next year. Then.
When you came off of your last win, was this kind of the time frame that you had in mind in terms of when you expected to return, or did you even expect to return sooner?
Yeah, I would have been. It would have been nice for October. I saw that they were doing that Milan card after my fight. Like literally that day, my friend was like, "Hey, he also fights in Bellator. His name's Grant." He was talking about that card. I was like, "Oh, that'd be cool if we both got on there, went out to Italy and did that." But I feel happier that I'm on this card because this is going to be more eyes watching. I feel like this is a really big card, probably the biggest card of the year to me. 2 world title fights on there. There'll be a lot of publicity on this card, so I'm happy with the spot that I'm in here.
I can't remember. Have you shared a card with Grant Neal before, or have you guys always fought in separate cards?
Always fought on separate cards, yeah. So as long as I've been fighting, he's been in Bellator, and now I've had 2 fights with Bellator, and neither one. No, he was ideally going to be on this card, and we were going to be on Chicago together, but I guess something happened or some things happened, and couldn't get a matchup or whatever it is. I don't know what goes on behind scenes, but he's not on the card. So that kind of sucks, but it's all right.
I got you, man. One thing that really stood out about your last fight, I was sitting there, cage fight in Tacoma to watch your fight. One thing that really stood out was your striking, right? Like you've really developed your striking over time and your stand-up overall. Where do you feel like you are at in terms of developing that aspect of your game?
Where do I feel like I'm at now?
Yeah, in terms of your striking and your stand-up.
Yeah. I feel steps ahead of where I was in July, where I last performed. I feel like I'm just getting better. I have a better understanding of it and of what I do right and the things that I do wrong, and like correcting both of those. And like understanding why I'm doing good at striking so I can do that better, and then understanding where I'm getting hit or where. And this isn't so much in my fights, but this is we train, we spar every week, and so I'm able to get that data every single week and be like, oh, you get hit here and here and here, and your coaches be like, all right, well, let's make these adjustments. And I just like we train it 3 times a week. So if I was one of the guys who like just does it and then forgets about it when I get home, then I wouldn't make the strides that I'm making. But like when I come home, like walking around the house, I'm doing like just these little things, and like I'm thinking about it all the time. Like I've almost become a little bit obsessed with it, and because of that, right, I've made some strides in that area.
Yeah, because I feel like when you made that transition from collegiate wrestling to MMA, right? I feel like the difficulty that comes with that is with MMA, obviously, you're focusing on so many different aspects of fighting, and wrestling, obviously, you're just focusing on wrestling. So looking back on that whole transition, what were some of the most challenging parts of making that move to MMA?
Just being more loose with your body. Wrestling, it seems almost really like rigid and tough and tight, right? Like you can even see it like in people in wrestling exchanges when you have to go from wrestling to striking. Like if I'm on top of you and I'm fighting you and you get away and you get the escape. You can see people like they're tight. Their muscles are like wanting to close up and be, so tight up. And you see a lot of people like have to shake themselves out for a second and then get back to it. Like I think that was a big difference of like when you go and hit pads and you hit it like a normal wrestler, you're exhausted in 30 seconds because you're hitting with everything's so tight and you're just so, it looks uncoordinated, but you're just so like rigid and rough. And eventually you learn to like let your body like flow and just start to move and just be a little bit more loose with it. And then once you figure that out, then I think things start to fall into place a little bit easier each time, even though like it's still a learning process every day.
Absolutely. And you've been working under Justin Salas, of course, former UFC fighter. Talk to me about the work you've gotten in with him, and what are some of the biggest things you've learned about the fight game in and out of the cage from a guy like that?
Man, a lot. He's a veteran of the sport, and he's another reason, probably the biggest reason on why I've made these strides in the striking is he was a very good fighter, a very good wrestler, but he just understood like what he did wrong as like striking and wrestling and an athlete and all that stuff, and he's done a really good job of like expressing that to me and like just being real and venting and telling me the things that he wish he would have done or things that he was doing that were working and just stuff like that. And he had a good lineage. He was coached under Trevor Whitman when he was fighting. So he just has a good lineage of striking background. And then he was able to just like express it to me as a wrestler, from wrestler to one wrestler, learning striking, like he understood it. So, I didn't have to like be a wrestler, learn from a boxer on how to strike, because it's a little bit different. It might be more effective. It might not be. I don't know. But I learned from a wrestler who also knows how to strike. And he just kind of, hey, you tend to want to do this as a wrestler, right? So we'll let it flow like this, like just things like that. So, he's the man. I'm thankful for him every day. And we've been rocking it.
And obviously with Bellator 288 just around the corner, I got to ask you about a lightweight title fight coming up in your division, Patricky, Pitbull, and Usman Nurmagomedov. How do you see that fight playing out, and what are your expectations for that one?
I do think Nurmagomedov is going to get the win. I just feel like he's younger, got more momentum. He does give up the experience, but he's got 15 fights. He trains with some of the top guys in the world, so he's experienced. He knows what he's doing. He should be comfortable. He should be ready. I just think he's a little bit younger, a little bit more hungry. He's got a little bit more momentum in his favor right now, so I just think he's going to get the win. I'm not going to go off and say like he's going to first round sub him or something like that. But there's always a chance. There's always a chance that something else would happen, but. Yeah, I feel pretty confident and comfortable in saying that I think he'll skate by with that win.
A few more questions from me, man. Once again, I really do appreciate the time. I want to ask you about another former collegiate wrestling star, Bo Nickal. Obviously, a guy that's been getting a lot of buzz in MMA right now, with him getting ready to make his UFC debut pretty soon. What have you made of his rise in MMA, and what have you seen from him so far?
Yes, I've watched a couple of his fights, for sure, both the Contender Series fights, and he's about as good as you can get at wrestling, college wrestling at least. The Olympic stuff's different, but in like NCAA college wrestling, he's about as good as you can get. Right, so there's no surprise to me on how good he would be at controlling somebody. But I was surprised when he, rolled down and did the triangle choke, right? I mean, he kind of like not pulled guard, but he gave up ground to go underneath to pull that triangle choke and pulled it off and did it smoothly, like he was a grappler, like he was a jiu-jitsu guy. So that was impressive. That was about the main thing that like stood out that impressed me was like, oh dang, this guy's not just like a wrestler learning jiu-jitsu, like he knows what he's doing. Like he's not just comfortable of dominating you on top and then going for submission. like he was comfortable doing that. So that was cool to see. And yeah, just know that he's going to be hard to deal with in grappling if you can't get off your feet or off the ground.
Definitely. And I kind of want to ask you, like 1 year from now, where do you see yourself in terms of the lightweight division, your career, your development, and all that? What are some of your goals that you have coming up?
How many years he said?
Just 1 year.
Yeah. Oh, 1 year. 1 year. I plan on ideally trying to bang off like three, four. I would like 4. I understand that does get tough to do. You got to keep a lot of fighters active, but in my head, I want to get 4. I set those goals a little higher. And in 4 fights, that should put me in the rankings, depending on who I beat in those 4 fights. That'd be a different picture. Maybe I'm higher than I think, but I want to bang off 4 fights next year. And I'm confident that I can do that and will do that against, tough competitors, whether they're ranked or not. So I'm just ready to have an active year. And then the next year or two, we will pull and be the best.
Absolutely. And last question for me, man. The day after Bellator 288, what are we going to be writing about when we talk about Archie Colgan and your fight? What are the headlines going to read?
The headlines are going to say, he's what you think he is. He's explosive. He's fast. He's entertaining. He's smart. He's patient. He's composed. And he's a finisher.
Absolutely, man. Well, hey, we're looking forward to it. Before we wrap things up here, I'll give you the floor to shout out any sponsors you have, shout out your team, social media, all that good stuff. I'll give you the final word.
Yeah. Shout out my team, my coaches, Justin Salas, Peter Stroud. You guys are great. And Ben Charrington, he's a wrestling coach who helps me out. Shout out to all my teammates that helped me prepare for these moments. My wife for being the wife and taking care of kiddo and helping me be the father that I could be. And then the big shout outs to the sponsors also, DNA Vibe, Alpha Country Training, Nutrition. Man, there's so many. I feel so bad. Sometimes I fumble up on these. Man, all my sponsors, I'm sorry if I forgot something. But I love you all. I'm very thankful and appreciative for all that you guys do for me. To continue to chase these dreams, and sooner than later, we will have a gold title to bring home, and it'll be ours.
Well said, man. Well, Archie, it was great to meet you. Great to chat with you. I'm sure we'll chat again soon. All the best with these final days of camp, and I'm sure we'll chat again soon, man. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you, Curtis.